Well, I think for most people, it's because they know me. I've been around probably for the entire time that you've lived in our city. So I have a track record, and I have a track record in 15 years as being a Minister of the Crown, as I think being competent and showing integrity in what I've done. I've handled big government departments spending billions of dollars. I know how to budget. I know how to get our city doing more for less, being more efficient, being more effective. I also know how central government works, and for local government in New Zealand, we rely on a partnership with central government. That means you have to know which buttons to push to make central government responsive to our city's needs. So I hope that I can be a strong advocate for Auckland. I hope that I can be a strong leader for our city. I know how to work with teams of people and to get the best result from the team that will make up our elected councillors. I know how to work with the media, to communicate with the electorate. I know how to represent and advocate strongly on behalf of our city. I've lived in Auckland all my life, but I've chosen to stay here. It's a beautiful city. It can be a great city, but we also have some big challenges. So for me, it's a chance to do something for the city that I was born in, that I was brought up in, that I was educated in, and a city that's important to me and my family, to you and your family, but actually to the whole of New Zealand. So I want to help make this a great place to live, a great place to work, and to make it a city that succeeds for New Zealand. I think it's because Auckland is so important to New Zealand. In Chinese terms, Auckland is a very small city, 1.5 million people. But in New Zealand, it's 35% of our population, and it's 37% of our total production as a country, but it's 50% of our country's growth. So for New Zealand to do well, Auckland has to succeed. This is a great city to live in, but we do face some huge challenges as a community. And partly those challenges come because we have grown so quickly. Every year we are adding 40,000 cars, 42,000 people. If we don't act now, our city will become a very hard place to live in. We want a very livable city in Auckland. We want one that meets our needs, and transport infrastructure is a critical part of that. As an Aucklander, you will know how difficult it is to drive around, particularly in peak traffic hours. And I live in the south of Auckland. I travel on the motorways. I spend hours stuck in the traffic in my car. And collectively, that is very expensive for Auckland. The Productivity Commission in central government says that we waste $3 billion a year because of traffic congestion and traffic gridlock. We have to free up our city. And that means, I think, for a city that's moved from being a large provincial city to a small global city, we've got to have better public transport systems. We can improve our motorways, but in the end, we need to make sure our heavy rail system works effectively. The City Rail Link will help us with that. We need something like light rail. Coming from China, you know how good public transport works. We need a light rail system, units that carry 400 or 500 people at a time, that can run down our existing streets, that can move people around the city quickly and efficiently and conveniently. Light rail means you can move away from the heavy rail lines, so we can cover the North Shore, we can cover the Isthmus of Auckland, we can cover the east of Auckland. Because what's wrong with New Zealand, what's wrong with Auckland? We react after the event. We needed better transport infrastructure 10 years ago, and we wait till we are totally congested before we say, oh, we must find a solution to that. We need to bring that funding forward, and we need to start constructing that infrastructure now. The problem is this: every week we add another 800 cars to the roads, but the roads aren't getting much bigger in most places. And we've got to learn, because there are so many people now living in Auckland, we've got to have a good public transport system to cater for those needs. People will travel by public transport if it's convenient to them and if it provides a good, efficient service. So we've made some changes that are good. We've electrified our railways. We'll have the City Rail Link, which will double the capacity of the trains. But we also need things like light rail that can go to places where trains can't go. We need more busways so that when you get on the bus, you're not stuck in the same queue that the rest of the traffic is. Take the North Shore, for example. Your listeners that live on the North Shore will know if they drive into town, they will see the buses whizzing by on the busway. And if I was living on the shore and it was convenient for me to catch the bus, I'd be catching the bus. So those are some of the solutions that we need. Now, how do we pay for that? Well, we need infrastructure bonds. When we build a major new transport infrastructure, you don't pay for it in the first year. You don't pay for it for the next 2 generations. You spread the cost over those generations. So encouraging the government to provide the council with infrastructure bonds, low interest rates that will be paid off over time, but so that we can bring forward that infrastructure. So there's not just one solution, but a lot of solutions. We need to invest in infrastructure. For our kids, when I was a child at school, every one of us rode our bikes to school. But now parents say, no, the roads are much too dangerous. So let's create cycleways so our kids can ride again on their bikes to school. Used to be 80% of our kids rode to school, now it's just 3%. I'm a Labor MP right now, but I will be running as an independent for the Mayoralty of Auckland, because I think it's really important that as Mayor you represent the whole of your city, not just part of it. Actually, in my electorate of Mount Roskill, I represent all of the people, regardless of whether they vote for Labor or National or any other party. The problem with housing at the moment is that the supply of housing is not meeting the demand, and the cost of housing is very, very high. So let's look at the supply side first of all, because that's the main side. Land is 60% of the cost of a home in Auckland. So we need to zone enough land for the city to expand into, and we need to zone it so it can move upwards, because it will be cheaper to develop good quality apartments than simply standalone houses. We need to make sure our building industry is more efficient. I've seen the way apartments go up in China. They grow like mushrooms. You know, that wasn't there yesterday. We are very slow in our building in New Zealand. Most builders build 4 or 5 houses a year. We don't have the economies of scale. We don't have the production techniques to keep the price of houses down. And we may need to bring in investors from outside and people from outside to bring in new techniques for building in our city. They need to be good quality. We've had enough leaky homes in Auckland. We don't want any more leaky homes. Good quality, well built, but efficiently produced and cheaper housing. We are not creating enough houses. Our house prices are just soaring. And you know, it's okay if you're already a house owner, but what about your generation? Young people who want to buy their first home. None of our kids could buy their first home unless mum and dad can provide them with the deposit. But that's unfair for those young people who don't have parents who can help. So we need to build more houses. It's about making sure our council is responsive and efficient. Sometimes I think with council services, we're not treated like we are the client or the customer. The council officials say, no, we're going to do it this way, and it doesn't matter what you want. Well, I'm sorry, you're the ones that are in charge. You pay the rates that fund the council, and you elect the councillors to represent you. So we need a council that becomes a can-do council rather than a can't-do council. We need it to be responsive, we need it to be more efficient, we need to stop the waste and the duplication. We want better value for money, we want more responsive council bureaucracy that can meet our needs. That's what we set up a super city for, but I don't think we've achieved that yet. People aren't happy with the way that council is operating, and we've got to make the council work more effectively, more efficiently, more transparently, and to be more responsive to the people who count, you, the people of Auckland, who pay your rates and who elect your councillors.